ask you a question. What is the legacy that you want to leave your children when you go on to be with the Lord? Let's talk about that today in our devotion. In Deuteronomy chapter 34, we read about the death of Moses and how the baton was passed to young Joshua. And Joshua became the leader of God's people. The Bible says he was chosen because Moses had laid his hands on him, and so he was to take that baton and he was to lead the children of Israel. You see, Moses led the children of Israel out of Egypt and their slavery and their bondage, but Joshua led them into the promised land. God's plan was never just to get them out of Egypt, but it was to bring them into a land that he had promised. So Moses brought them out, Joshua brought them in. And Moses left Joshua a legacy. Joshua's chosen because, you see, Joshua had walked with Moses. He saw Moses in his great times. He saw him in his weak times, but he walked with Moses and he saw how God used Moses and he learned those lessons. The great lesson or the great legacy that was left to Joshua was the example of Moses. Do you remember in Exodus chapter 33 where Moses was in the tent of the meeting there? He met with the Lord and all the people met with the Lord. But also we find in the very tent that Moses was in, Joshua was there too. And even when Moses left, Joshua remained behind. You see, he was learning some great lessons from Moses. The legacy that was left to Joshua was the example of Moses. Now, you and I have a legacy to leave to our children, to our grandchildren, to the generations that are to come, and we need to have our example something that people can follow, that the next generation can follow, that future generations will see and be able to say, that's what we ought to do. That's the way we ought to go. That's the legacy we ought to leave. In my own life, I look back and you know, I just discovered several years ago about the legacy that was left me. I didn't know it. And then whenever I learned about it, oh, how thrilled I was and how much it helped me personally and encouraged me personally at a very, very difficult time in my life. You see, John and Delaney Bass, who were the great-grandparents of my grandmother, Eliza Bass, they came to the state of Louisiana. It actually wasn't even a state when they came there. They came there and they pioneered planting churches in that area. I had no idea that some of the first Protestant churches were started by my third and fourth great grandparents. And oh, what a blessing it was to me to learn about that. And what I discovered was this, that not only did they do that, but they left a legacy for my grandmother, who was this great woman of prayer. And she prayed, she lived out, she was not any big important person. She was just a poor farmer's wife living out in the country, but she was a great woman of prayer. And do you know what happened? She left me a legacy. I didn't even know her, but when I began to read about her life, I discovered that the one thing about her life was that she was a woman of prayer. A legacy was left to me. And I want to leave a legacy to my children, to my grandchildren, and to the generations that are to come. What kind of legacy will you leave?